Once the empire had been dismantled, the churches scattered throughout the territory became the successors of the tattered Roman administration. Amid the general confusion, while the outlines of a new era could barely be glimpsed through the fog of the provisional, priests became notaries, ombudsmen, and magistrates. The seeds of the future European aristocracy sprouted on the battlefield in the fight against barbarian invaders. In each village and parish, community leaders who stood out in the effort of defense were rewarded by the people with land, livestock, and coins, and by the church with noble titles and the legitimizing anointment of their authority. They became great landowners, and counts, and dukes, and princes, and kings. Land ownership was never the foundation nor the origin, but the fruit of their power. Military power. The power of a fierce and haughty caste, enriched by the sword and not the plow, careful not to mix with others, and therefore refraining from cultivating either intelligence, suited only to priests and women, or the land, the task of serfs and tenants, or commerce, the occupation of bourgeois and Jews. For more than a millennium, it ruled Europe by force of arms, supported by a tripod of ecclesiastical and cultural legitimacy, popular obedience translated into labor and taxes, and financial support obtained or extorted from merchants and bankers in times of crisis and war. Its rise culminates, and its decline begins, with the founding of absolutist monarchies and the advent of the nation-state. It culminates because these new formations embody the power of the warrior caste in its purest state, a power issuing from itself by direct delegation from God, without the mediation of the priesthood, now reduced to the subordinate status of reluctant accomplice. But this is already the beginning of the decline, because the absolute monarch, though emerging from the aristocracy, sets himself apart from it and must seek support, against it and against the church, from the third estate, which thereby becomes an independent political force, capable of intimidating the king, the clergy, and the nobility alike. If the medieval system had lasted 10 centuries, absolutism endured no more than 3. The reign of the liberal bourgeoisie will last even less. 1 century of economic and political freedom is enough to make some capitalists so unimaginably rich that they no longer wish to submit to the whims of the market that enriched them. They want to control it, and the instruments for doing so are threefold: the domination of the state, in order to implement status policies that ensure the perpetuation of the oligopoly, the promotion of socialist and communist movements that invariably favor the growth of state power, and the recruitment of an army of intellectuals to prepare public opinion to bid farewell to bourgeois liberties and cheerfully enter a world of all-encompassing and obsessive repression, extending even to the smallest details of private life and everyday speech, presented as a paradise adorned simultaneously with capitalist abundance and communist social justice. In this new world, the economic freedom essential to the system's functioning is preserved only to the strict extent necessary to subsidize the suppression of freedom in the political, social, moral, educational, cultural, and religious domains. Thus, the megacapitalists alter the very basis of their power. They no longer rely on wealth as such, but on control over the political social process, a control which, by freeing them from the adventurous exposure to market fluctuations, makes them a durable dynastic power, a neo-aristocracy capable of weathering changes in fortune and the passing of generations, sheltered in the fortress of the state and international organizations. They are no longer megacapitalists. They are metacapitalists, the class that has transcended capitalism and transformed it into the only socialism that has ever existed or ever will, the socialism of the great lords and the social engineers at their service. This new aristocracy is not born, like the former, of military heroism rewarded by the people and blessed by the church. It is born of Machiavellian premeditation rooted in self-interest, and, through a counterfeit clergy of subsidized intellectuals, it blesses itself. What remains to be seen is what kind of society this self-invented aristocracy is capable of creating, and how long a structure so plainly built on lies can endure.